Children of Time, aka the Spider Book. Uh, so it starts off. There's these people on a spaceship. It's like advanced humans. Like they got neurochips in their brain, Neuralink chips in their brain, where they can like talk to each other by just thinking. And it's following the leader. She's Dr. Kern. I forget her first name. But basically, she's like giving a speech because they're about to send down. So they're on this planet. They're like 3,000 light years away from Earth, and they're like on this. They terraform this planet, and they they're about to send down like a pod of monkeys and a nanovirus that makes them evolve faster. Because they're like, shit, we haven't found aliens yet. Let's just make our own. And there's gonna be like some guy that goes down there to like sit there and kind of watch over them. He's gonna go in like cryostasis to look over, like whenever they're ready, he's gonna like kind of guide them, I guess. Um, but yeah, so she's giving this speech, and then she turns it over to the guy that's gonna be in the pod. And then he starts talking. He's giving all a speech. He's like, "I'm making a great sacrifice for mankind." And then he's like, "By blowing up this ship." And they're like, "Wait, what?" And it turns out he's part of this group called the Nuns. They're basically people that are like anti uh, evolving monkeys, I guess. I don't know. But he doesn't fuck with the people on the ship. And so he's like, "I'm going to sabotage it." And then she's like, "Wait, hold on." And she tries to cut off his feed. Because she also can just silence them, which is kind of crazy. Like, you can. Yeah. But so she tries to cut him off, and she's like, "Fuck." And then doesn't work. And she tries to go to him in person, but he's already shut down the, like, doors where she can't open them. She's like, he's going to take. And she realizes he's in the reactor room. And she's like, it's going to take too long to hack into these doors to go and stop him. And then she's like, okay, I can't do the escape pods because surely he sabotaged those. And then she's like, wait, hold on a second. What if I go in the pod he was supposed to go down to? Did he think of that? And so she runs to that, she shuts it off, and it's like, it's only big enough for one person. And then she hears a bunch, like, this whole time there's so many people, like, everybody on the ship, because I guess it's a big ship. Everybody's screaming at her through the Neuralink, just trying to be like, "Yo, what the fuck do we do? Help, help, please!" And then she just silences them. She's like, "You know what? Mute." Kind of fucked up. So she locks herself in the pod he's supposed to go into, and while it's like preparing for takeoff, she starts hearing them banging on the door because they realize, like, oh shit, 'cause there's also explosions going where people did try to do the escape pods. So yeah, she gets sent off, and then she ejects. She gets there down in the orbit safely, and then like during that, she sees the like supply drop of the monkeys and the nanovirus. I don't know if they're in two separate ships or if it's one, but either way, she sees like the nanovirus one. Nanovirus gets down to the ground successfully, but then she sees burning corpses of the monkeys falling. She's like, "Oh shit!" And then she goes into cryo sleep, and then. Uh, So she's doing that. She also fast forwards like 30 years, and this whole time she's been sending like distress signal back to Earth. But there's a 30-year gap between them, so they're like thousands of light years away. But it only takes 30 years to get back to Earth. So I guess they figured out faster than light travel, but they also had cryostasis. So I mean, I guess it would be old technology that I don't know. But yeah, so they do that. She's sending distress signals, and then after 30 years, it goes silent, like stuff coming from Earth. And so the computer wakes her up from the cryostasis, and they're like, yeah, what do you want to do? Because Earth's gone. Like, shit's fucked up. I think she doesn't know, but she's like, surely there was like a war going on between the nuns and the scientists. And so she stops hearing shit, and she's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna upload my consciousness to the computer in this satellite, and you're just gonna wake me up when the monkeys are advanced. And she had been in cryosleep for 30 years, so I guess she forgot the monkeys are dead. And so she goes back to sleep, and it still sends off like a distress signal just in case. And then it switches perspectives. This book switches perspectives. It switches to a little spider down on the planet below. This spider's name is Portia, not like the car. Do you pronounce that Porsche? Fuck you if you do. No, I digress. So she's a Portia, and she's hunting. She's like a hunting spider. She eats other spiders, and she's hunting one, and she's like trying to figure out how to fuck it up. And it's like kind of doing it from like a perspective of just like an Animal Planet documentary, just kind of describing what's going on in her brain and shit. And all of a sudden she sees a guy spider, like the same breed as her, on the other side. And like it was like normally she either just runs away, stops the hunt there, or goes after the guy spider, because they're like the spiders that the females eat the males after fucking. So she sees them, and instead of doing either of those, there's just like something that happens that they're like, wait, hold on. We've learned about partnership, about teaming up. And so they work together where the guy is like pretending to be a spider on the strings by like smacking, like he's like basically playing guitar with the other spider's webs to make it think that there's somebody walking over, and then she's slowly sneaking up behind and then pounces and kills it. And then it's like they don't notice yet, but the spiders are evolving. Again, I guess David Attenborough, is he the one that does whoever does the Animal Planet documentary? He's basically the one saying that in that. At least that's what I thought. So then it goes to a third perspective, and this is Dr. Holston. Actually, I don't know if he's a doctor. No, he's not. He's Professor Holston, I guess. I don't know. This guy, he wakes up from cryostasis, and he's like, oh, fuck, what the hell? How'd I get here? And he actually is on a ship called the Gilgamesh. This is a massive ship. It holds like hundreds of thousands of people, all of them in ice trays. And then they wake him up. He's part of the key crew of them. And then it kind of explains that they're from Earth, and they're from like thousands of, maybe not that, I don't know. It doesn't really say how long in the future. But it's Earth after the fucking war between the nuns and the other people that Kern is part of. They just nuked the planet. And then they also sent out like a virus that just destroyed all electronics. It just like sabotaged all of them. So like satellites fell out of the sky, like moon colonies, just their life support just stopped working and they just suffocated. Kind of metal. But yeah, so he's part of the crew, and they're like, it's like humanity's last ditch effort, because they were like chilling in like an ice age, because like basically I guess it was nuclear warfare, and then it turned it into like an ice age, and then it went back to like it started thawing, and then they started like discovering old technology, and so he comes out of that, and they're like, okay, we're coming in on this planet. We followed, because they like scavenged, like, so okay, so I got sidetracked there. Holston, he's basically a historian. They call him, I forget the term they used for him, but basically he just studies like that old technology and tries to like understand it. So he's basically just he's studying ancient Mesopotamia, but for like if we were spacefarers, or if they were actually, because they have more advanced technology. Because these guys, they're starting from scratch. They're scrapyard dogs. And so he figures that out, and I don't know. They star charted over to the planet, and then they're going in towards it, and then they're like, wait, hold up, what is this? There's a signal coming from it, like a satellite signal. And they're like, okay, wait Holston up, and Holston, he goes in, they're like, hey, you gotta decipher this code. And so he starts deciphering. He's like, what is, he's like, oh, it's Imperial C. I don't know what Imperial C is. I don't know if that's a real thing, if that's like a encryption type or something, or if it's just something they made up. But he deciphers it, and he finds out it's a distress signal. Whose distress signal? You'll find out. So he starts sending it back. He just starts answering, and he just sent the same exact thing back because he tried like to answer and just couldn't. And then he sends that back, and then all of a sudden, it's like, wait, hold on. And Dr. Kern, yep, that's it. It's her planet. It's the planet she was on. She responds. I don't know if I think it's the AI of her. Yeah, the AI of her responds, like the uploaded consciousness, because she's still like, it's not like uploading conscious, but it's like duplicating it and putting it into the systems. There's two of her now. One's that's in the cryosleep, and then one that is the computer. And it's like, what the hell are you doing here? And they're like, we're the last of humanity. We need a planet. It looks like you got a good planet down there. Can we live on it? And she's like, no, fuck off. And they're like, wait, but please, like, what? This is our only hope. And then she's like, no, fuck off. And they're like, okay, we're gonna send some drones down to check it out. And so they send down some drones, and then she just takes over them. She's like, I don't know, she hacks into them, and she's just like, nope, my drones now. But they sneak one, because she's on that satellite orbiting the planet, so they like keep it on the other side of the planet from her, so she can't see it. And they go down, and they're like, oh, we're looking at it, and they're like, whoa, grass? What is that? What is all this green stuff? And then it's just flying, and they see like a little glint. And they're like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it must just be a glitch with the camera. And they keep flying, and then they get caught in a spider web. Yeah. A spider, yeah. And then, oh shit, and then they just see a massive spider, like a meter long. Like, that's like 3 feet for, yeah. 3 foot long spiders rush across the camera, and then it's just gone. There's just nothing left. And they're like, wait, what was that? And then Dr. Kern, she's like, yep, so get off. She takes over their entire ship, and she's like, here, I'm going to give you the coordinates to another one of these terraforming projects. You can go live there. This is my spider, or she still thinks it's the monkeys. She's like, this is my monkey experiment place. You're not allowed to fuck with my experiment. You're messing it up. If any of these drone bits that I took over end up messing with it, I'm going to kill you. And so she sends them on their merry way, and they're like, okay, this, like, she literally just took over our entire ship with her mind. We're not messing with her. So they start flying away toward that other one she gave them coordinates to. But then the, like, commander of the ship, he is like, you know what? Let's, on our way, let's like, that moon looks pretty cool. Let's just drop a little moon colony there, just in case. And so he drops this moon colony. But the people, they wake up for the moon colony. Also, like, in between this, they put Holston back to sleep, because they're like, you're good. We already, like, hey, yeah, you go back to sleep. We don't need you at this point anymore. So he's back in there, but then he wakes up, and he gets kidnapped. They're like, come with us. He's like, what? And then they got a gun. He's like, okay, I guess I'm coming with you. And so they take him off to this other, like, room, and then there's like gunfire going behind him. He's like, what is happening? And it turns out they're the people that were woken up to go on the moon colony, and they're rebelling because they're told, they're like, yeah, you're gonna live in this little, like, tiny little, like, basically shipping container and have multiple generations of kids while you just kind of stir up some algae and stuff to get, like, try and get this planet an atmosphere. Not even a planet, it's a moon. Where, like, you're just gonna die here in this little tiny cage, and you're gonna be fucking, but not too much, because you don't want overpopulation there. So they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna go with you to the other planet. You can go down to the moon colony, and so they're fighting. And then they're losing, though, and I guess they took Holston as, like, a captive. And so they grab him, and then they also grab the chief engineer, her too. They took her captive. And so they're tied up in this room, and then the, like, lead mutineer guy, he's like, all right, let's go. And then they're like, wait, what? Like, isn't this, like, your headquarters? Like, don't you have this part of the ship locked down? He's like, we're going. And so he takes them off. Turns out he's taking them to one of the, like, shuttles. Like, they got little spaceships inside the big spaceship. Takes them to one of those, and they just book it. They shove them in there, and they fly straight towards, Kern's planet. And so during this time, like, the head engineer, she's like, hey, the evil AI robot that said it's going to kill us if we come back, yeah, it's going to take over the ship. And they're like, no, it's not. And then she's like, send out a drone and see. And they send out a little drone, and it gets taken over immediately. And they're like, okay, maybe it's going to take over. So they untie her so that she can like disconnect it from the Wi-Fi, I guess, or however it's connecting. But they do leave it to where it can connect to the voice, like their radio, so that they can talk to it. And so they're talking to it, and or like they get close enough that the satellite's like, "Hey, leave. We do not know you're not messing with my experiment. You're gonna mess with my monkeys. They're gonna advance too fast." And so they're like, "No, but we need to go here." And they have to have Holston talk to him. That's why. Yeah, that's why they grabbed him. He's the only one that can understand the language she's talking in. So he is trying to beg her to like not kill them. He's like, "Listen, I am a prisoner on this ship. Please, can I not die?" And so she's like, "No, you're dying if you don't convince them to turn around." And so then they're like, "Well, if we turn around, we're dying anyways. We're just gonna go. I mean, fuck it." And so he's like trying to convince her otherwise, or he's like, "Guys, please, can I not get killed?" And so he comes up with the idea. He's like, I forget how there's like kind of glitching going on with the voice, where like there's like another voice in the background, and I don't know if it's actually like voice or like text. I don't know how. But either way, it's the actual real current Eliza. Maybe is that her name? That's the AI's name is Eliza. They have multiple personality disorder, I guess. But so he comes up with this idea. He's like, "Wait, can I talk to the other person?" And then it's like, "You mean my sister?" And he's like, "Yeah, can I talk to your sister?" And then she's like, I mean, I guess you can talk to her." And so it transfers over to the actual Dr. Kern, and she's like, what is happening? But she's like not awake still. It's like kind of like she's half machine. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't remember how it explains it, but like she's like not fully awake. It's just kind of like her in the background being like, "What is like? Why am I so cold? Why can't I open my eyes?" And so she's like mentally insane at this point. Um, and then whenever he's on her, he's like, "Wait, can I talk to Eliza again?" And he just keeps flip-flopping back and forth between the two. And so he does that to the point where they are no longer like threatened by the satellite to take them out. I mean, they're still a little bit. They're like it's like on the horizon, but they're like getting on the other side of the planet and they're getting close. And then at this point, the AI's like, "Oh, wait a second, you're messing with me," and shoots a laser at them, and it blows up the back of their ship. But they crash down on the planet, and only one of them dies. There's like, I think Holston has broken ribs, and some other people are a little bruised up, but they're fine, besides like the one person that died, but they didn't even have a name, so like they don't even count as a person, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so they take them out, they lay him down there, and they're like, "Oh, okay." Oh, also in between this point, I forgot. Sorry. It switched back to the spiders at one point, and it was showing where the spiders have evolved. Actually, I think it switched back to the spiders a couple times during this. But basically, at this point, the spiders had evolved up to where they have created like a mini society. Like they have like a city basically, and they were like, so it kind of the first time I went back to them is like they started kind of being like in little tribes and they'd like hunt together and stuff. But then they figured out like, oh, we can just kind of sit at a city for a while and create like a big power in numbers type deal. Except for now, they're kind of exploring. They're explorers. They're discovering new territory. And so they go to the edge of their forest and they're like out in like kind of desert and they're like, "Hey, there's another spider tribe. Let's go and talk to them." And the way they talk is they like just kind of stomp on the ground with their feet and like the vibrations. They like talk to each other through those vibrations. They're like big on vibes. And so they found this new tribe and they're like, "You're not messing with us. Like this is our territory. No, leave us alone." And so it's Portia, Bianca, and Fabio. So Portia is like kind of the main girl. In this one, she's like a warrior. No, she's like an explorer, but she's like kind of like a smart one. And then Bianca it's a different spider. It's not the same one from the start. I should have mentioned that as well. It's just they use the same name for like the three of them every time it switches back. And Bianca's like a warrior with them, and then Fabio, he's just kind of like their little like boy. They're like, yeah, you can tag along, I guess. Like you're used for some stuff. You're kind of a pack mule, even though he's smaller than them. And so, oh no, actually, he had understandings. I'll I gotta get into understandings real quick. So understandings are like basically their knowledge they pass down. Like it's just kind of the DNA, and they're like they don't really understand it, the spiders, but they just call it understandings. But it's basically like the ones that have like certain kind of strains of the DNA from the nanovirus that it evolved. They're like this one's smarter. They like this one knows how to farm. We don't know how, but it's just passed down from generation to generation to him. So that's what Fabio has. He has the farming. No, breed. He like has like little like little like worms that he sucks the sap out of. I don't even know, but basically he knows how to breed them for food. And so that was like kind of their offer. They go up, they're like, hey, like you can like fuck this dude and take his DNA, like you can get his understandings if you let us through, and we just want to explore. And they're like, you don't want to go that way, and they're like, why? And turns out, past them, there's a colony of ants, and the ants also have the nanovirus in them, but they're like not as smart as the spiders. And so they're like just brutal. Like they'll just kill you on site, but they're like kind of stupid. So like you can like mess with them like with the chemicals. Like the way the ants, I think it's actually how they work is they have like the pheromones that like you can like because if you like they follow the trail from the scout. And then, like, but if you, like, wipe it off, like, you take a Lysol wipe to, like, that trail, then they're, like, where do we go? What do we do? Kind of like that. And so they're still, like, they still work that way, but they're, like, more advanced. And so they do that, and then they kind of tell them about that, and then Portia's like, well, we gotta see that. And then the other colony, she's like, no, you're not allowed. And so Bianca goes and kills the leader of that tribe, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, okay, well, there you go. And then it turns out they have this little orb, and they like to ponder this orb. The orb just has vibes coming out of it, and they're like, what does this even mean? We'll get back to that later. But then, okay, so then it goes back, and then they crash land on uh, the Bachelor Holston in the pod, or the ship, the shuttle. Yeah, shuttle, that's the word for it. Back to him, and they crash landed on this planet. And so they're like, well, actually, I go back to the spiders. So it was like that, and then it was like the whole like they're in the uh, mutineer era back on the ship, and then it goes back to the spiders. And at this point, the spiders they got the city built up, and so the spiders they're in the city and they got the orb and they're pondering their orb, and all they know about the orb is that they're just getting messages from the sky with it. And like this doesn't make sense, but it's kind of it's like honestly kind of like tarot cards or like astronomy. Actually, no, it's more like astronomy right now, where like it's like sure sometimes it adds up, but this is just kind of we're gonna stick to more science. Um, and so it's like a cult almost at that point. And so they got that, but then the ants at this point have evolved a lot. Like they straight up, these ants are cutting down trees because they're attaching metal to their like what's the word for the stuff on their mouth? I think it's mandible. I don't know, like the chompy bits on their mouths basically. They're attaching metal to it and using that to cut down trees. They gotten pretty big too, and then they got flamethrower ants. These ants can just they're just flamethrower. Like they literally just breathe fire. They're dragons. And so they got these ants, and they're coming in. They're expanding their territory, and the spider's like, oh no, they're coming towards us. And so they come up with that, and it's back Portia, Bianca, Fabio. Um, Bianca is now the scientist. Portia is the warrior. And so Portia's like, listen, Bianca, we gotta do something. Bianca's like, listen, me and Fabio, we've been cooking up. Now Fabio's just her little assistant, her little lab assistant. We've been cooking up this thing. And they had been cooking up a chemical because they found these beetles with the ants, and these beetles just are literally they like to the ants they are nothing. Like quite literally, it's like as if it's like not even air. just like void. Like they sense nothing when they go by these ants. They're like, okay. And so what they do is they kill a beetle and they cover Portia in its armor, not like its shell. And so she's just wearing a dead beetle. And they're like, okay, you're going to go into the ant colony and you're going to drop this bomb. And it's just like a chemical bomb. She's like, what is this? And they're like, don't worry about it. And so Portia and her little troop of everybody, they go in and they sneak past, and there's like some of the ants got a little whiff in between the beetle shell. They're like, wait a second, there's something there, and they're killing off the other spiders. One of Portia's legs gets bitten off, but she keeps trucking along. And then they get to the center of the colony and they drop the bomb. Turns out the bomb is just the concentrated version of whatever chemical those beetles give off, and it just disables all the ants. Also, I forgot to mention, at this point, they had like their own little colonies of ants that they had like kind of already like enslaved. So like these ants were like the super ants, but they had like smaller ants that like were less evolved, that they like, because like the ants have like at this point evolved to the point where like their pheromones are changed up. They're like, it's like kind of like hackers and cybersecurity guys, where it's just like kind of a back and forth battle where they're just constantly changing. Like there's like new encryption methods, but then new decryption methods. But it was just like the ants' pheromones, and so they disable all these like super ants, and they come in, and at this point too they notice in the sky a big burning thing, and that goes back to the religion with the orb, and they're like, holy shit, the orb sent something to us. And so they disable those ants, and then they send in their little ants that they've already enslaved or domesticated, I guess we'll use, to reprogram these super ants. So now the super ants are now domesticated. And so they got that, and then they're like, okay, we did this. Let's go check out what that big asteroid burning thing falling from the sky was. Because then they're like, the cult calls the signals coming to the orb stuff from the messenger was the word they used for it. And they're like, who is the messenger? What the hell are you on about, dude? Because yeah. And so they go and check it out, and guess what? It's this space shuttle that Holston was on. And so back to Holston's point of view. So they just crash landed on this planet. And they're like, oh shit, okay, let's go check it out. And so they send out this one of the girls in there, and they're like, okay, you're gonna test and see if the air is breathable. And so she goes out in her spacesuit, and then she's testing the air, and it's looking good. But then all of a sudden she just starts screaming. Like, what is happening? And they check the camera, and guess what? There's some ants that crawled up in there. So this is like while Portia's like going to the ant colony, so it's before they domesticated them. And so she's like screaming, or it's like right after actually, because it was when Portia's on her way, but we don't know that yet. And so Portia, so they're out there, and this girl just gets eviscerated by ants, and they're like, we got to go out and save her. And the head guy, he's like, no, we don't know if it's safe yet. And then the head engineer, Lane, she's like, I don't care, we gotta save her. And she opens up the door, and of course the air is breathable. It was meant for monkey people that were supposed to be evolved to basically humans at this point. And so they run out and then grab her. Another guy, he gets his throat slit by one of the ants. And then they manage to get in. These ants are also huge too, like the spiders. They're like, I think, like at least like a foot long. They're, yeah, $5 foot long sized ants. And so they, actually maybe not that big, maybe like half. I don't know. They're big ants. They're big boys. And so they get on the ship or dragged back to the ship, and they're like smashing ants while they're inside. One of them has a gun. He's just popping ants on the ground, which isn't really, he's kind of bad at aiming. And so they get inside, and they're like, okay, we're good. We only lost 2 people. Cause yeah, the girl that went out first, she was already dead, and someone tried to save her. He just kind of died. This guy, his throat slit. So they're back in the ship, and then all of a sudden, it gets hot. Yup, one of the flamethrower ants just snuck his way on in, and so now the entire inside of the ship's on fire because this flamethrower ant is he's just going to town on them. And so they gotta hit the emergency unlock latches thing. And what that does, it just drops the back of their ship because it's supposed to drop the storage thing, but because they got shot by the laser when they're going down, they're missing that bit. So they're just the back wall of their ship just falls down. They're like, oh, we're dead to the ants, but all the ants are gone. And they're like, what happened here? And they kind of walk out and they look around and they see this big ass spider just staring at them. They're like, nope, I'm not dealing with that. And the guy with the gun just shoots it. He's just like, yeah, fuck that spider. Shoots it. And then another shuttle comes down. I forgot to mention they were getting chased by the other people, like the people on the ship whenever they were running away. They were following them in the shuttle, but their ship got taken over by the AI. And they're like, okay, well, we don't have to worry about them. And so that ship comes down. They're like, yep, guess what? We told the AI we would come down, take you guys, and dip out. And she just flew us down because she just took over the ship. It was like, okay, well, I'll make sure you do. And so they grab them, they shoot the mutineers, and then grab Holston and Lane, and then bring them back up to the ship. And then as they're going up, they see a drone just go down and just bomb the ship that they came down on, so to eviscerate. Also, at this point, one of the mutineers, she ran off into the woods and got away. I should keep that in mind. Flashback to Portia, perspective change back, whatever. So Portia is now like, what the hell was that? And they have captured the lady that ran off into the woods. And so she's just the slave. And so now they're just studying her. They're like, okay, the messenger now they believe in the messenger, the god, whatever sending signals down to the orb that they be pondering. And so they're like, whoa, okay, let's figure this one out. And so they're watching her and they're like, okay, this thing is obviously stupid. Like, it has no intelligence. Again, there's like these spiders, I guess they have shorter life cycles, so they're like evolving pretty fast. Not like super fast, but like enough to like where there's a few evolutions of them within that girl's lifetime. And so they've been watching her for years, like generations. And there's kind of times where like they get bored of her, stop really caring. Like, there's obviously always some people watching, but it's like kind of the autists that are loving it versus just normal scientists, like, yeah. And then there's like, they're talking, they're like, there's like points where like we thought like she could communicate, because like the human learned, this big old ape thing learned how to say food and water when she was hungry and thirsty. Crazy. We think she might have intelligence. She might be able to communicate. And then they're like, whoa, what? She's like making vibrations coming out of her mouth? What? No, that doesn't even make sense. She don't even know how to talk. And so it was just silly. And then she died. And then they dissected her. And they're like, yep, that's a life form. And then it goes back to Holston on the ship. After they brought him back up, they just put him back in cryostasis. They're like, sorry about that. Back to bed. And then they wake him up and they're like, hey, guess what? We're at that planet that Kern told us about. And so Kern, like, they're like, get there and they're like, whoa, what is this? And they saw like a big Death Star looking thing is how I imagined it. But it was the, like, machine they were using to terraform the planet. It was like a half-finished terraforming project. And so, because it was like halfway done whenever that virus that went out and killed all the machines went out. So it was like halfway done, and so they wake up Holston, they're like, listen, you gotta help us figure out what's going on here. You're the one that knows all this historic stuff. And so they kind of take them through, they look through all the technology there. Lane, the head engineer, she's got a whole team working on it. They're basically scrapping it, taking everything they can and getting like supplies out of it and stuff. And then they look at the planet, and the planet is just covered in just fungus. It's just one big fungus planet. And they send down a drone, and it's just all spores. All the air is just spore. So they're like, well, we're not living on that. We can't. So we're kind of screwed. Let's just get as much as we can from this terraforming thing. And so they would have Holston go through, and the head guy, I'm blanking on his name, so you'll just have to know him as Captain. So the captain is, he's like, Holston, brother, you need to tell me about this thing. And they look at it, guess what? Hint, Kern, it's a mind upload device. And then Holston kind of figures out, he's like, yeah, this is what it is. And like, the captain, he's kind of secretive about it. He doesn't want anybody else to know. He's like, Holston, you're coming with me directly. And Holston's like, why do I have to go onto the big old ship that is kind of spooky looking? And then the captain, he's just obsessed with this. But because Holston told him what it was, he sends Holston back to the cryostasis chamber. So Holston's back to Betty Bye. So this guy's obsessed with that. And then at this time, it actually goes back to, it's just a short little snippet of the moon colony. Yeah, didn't go too well. They are dying. And they don't have the life support ready. They're just sending distress signals. Yeah, they're dead. And then it goes back to the spiders. Spiders are looking up at the messenger. They've finally realized that they're like, okay, there's something going on with this orb. We need to figure this out. And they're just like getting a lot more advanced. So, it also reveals around this point in the book that the nanovirus was only meant to be for monkeys, but they didn't think to, like, all other vertebrates it didn't affect, but they didn't think about invertebrates like spiders, ants, and like there's some sea life. They don't really talk about it. They give them a weird name, but like the stuff in the sea also is advancing, but they really don't like ever mention it. But basically they're just advancing. Now they're like kind of they're having like a city, kind of like they're having their revolution. They got even bigger city. There's like a plague going on. So they're like trying to figure out how to fix this plague. They're like, guys, we're dying. Like, and then someone's like, just ask the messenger will help us. And then the messenger, obviously, it's just, the messenger turns out it's just the satellite that Kern's in, just sending down math, literally sending math equations. Actually, that's what it was. Oh, I messed up earlier at the very start of the book. It wasn't a distress signal they were seeing. It was the math equations, and then Holston answered the math equations, and that unlocked the AI. Whoopsie, not fixing that. You'll just have to deal with it. So, but they don't know that, and they're like, this is just a perfect pattern. We're just getting the same thing over and over. It's great. And the spiders like it, but then they're like, wait, there's another messenger. What is this? And it wasn't perfect patterns over and over. Like, we don't like this. What's going on? Turns out it was that moon colony begging for help, but they didn't understand what it meant at the time. It's not the spider's fault. And so basically after that, it goes back to the spiders. They got the plague going on. They're trying to figure it out, and what they find out is there's another colony that had the plague that all died from it, but there was a few that evolved to be resistant to the plague. And they're like, we need to study them. And it's like, this is really bad. This is like COVID times like, this is what they said COVID was gonna be. Where like, there was like, people, the spiders were going back to their old ways of just being tribes, just killing each other. Which, I mean, during this time, it's still like, it was okay to kill the guys, because they're there to give their seed. And then, like, sometimes when you're fucking, you just get passionate and kill them, I guess, and just pass down the understandings. So they're kind of like, whatever, they're second class. And so, but they come down and then they're like, okay, we need to study these guys. But then they're like, also, like, if anybody even has, like, any chance of having the disease, they're killed on sight so that it doesn't spread. Because it's kind of like rabies. The plague is kind of like rabies. Like, you don't really feel it for a while, but then all of a sudden you start twitching. You start twitching. And then you just get a desire to climb real high. And then when you climb real high, you, I guess, just die. You just climb until you're dead. And so, like, at the top of these cities, because they're just giant trees with webs between them. At the very top of the trees, there's just a bunch of dead spiders now. It's kind of metal. But yeah, so they got that. And then they bring over some of the resistant spiders from another colony. They kind of sneak them in. And I think it's Portia is back to being the scientist on this, and then Bianca is the like she's kind of like a cult leader because she's really into the messenger, and she's like, listen, guess what? I just found out this little if you do like metal and wrap like coils around it, you can like mimic the mess. I think we can talk to the messenger. And then Portia's like, listen, we got some bigger things at hand. Like, I'm not, like, listen, she, like, low-key agrees with her. But Bianca is, like, kind of, like, she's looked at as, like, insane with it. And so Portia's kind of risking anything if she does agree. So she's got to be like, you're stupid. Shut up. We got to figure this out. But then Bianca's like, I'm just going to go ponder the orb real quick. And Portia's like, I'm too busy to stop you. And so they figure out how to extract the understandings. I think it's like they low-key just extract the DNA from them, and then they can just drink it. So like now instead of having to fuck and then have your kids just know the understandings, you go to basically a library of understandings. It also allowed everyone to no longer have the plague. So that like was the cure. So like I think it is like the DNA, I guess, or the nanovirus. Maybe they extract the nanovirus itself. That would make a bit more sense than just drinking DNA. Because I mean, I don't know. Listen, we're talking about spiders that are evolved to the point where like a nanovirus. We've gone way past the point of actual science as we know it at least. And so they now have this like ability to just suck down the understandings, and so they're prospering. They're actually getting to a point where like it's kind of looked down upon to like kill men. Crazy. And so they're like very evolved, and then it goes back to Holston on the ship, and then they're like, uh, the timeline isn't the best with this. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of switch backs and forth, but the general story is the same. Like maybe the spider understanding is after this point, but you know what, close enough. But yeah, so Holston back on the ship, he gets woken up. Guess what? You know the captain that was obsessed with the uploading his consciousness. Guess what he's trying to do? Yup. So Holston gets woken up and gets taken captive again, and he's like, "Oh, here we go again." And so now he's just in a padded room, and he thinks like there's something going on with his cryostasis chamber that's making him go insane, and because like he thinks he's like having a dream where he's in prison, but no, he actually is. And then these people come in, and they're all in tattered robes and stuff. Not robes, but like the uniform for their space calling ship stuff. And they're like, come with us. And he's like, okay, I guess. And so he goes in, and turns out Captain trying to upload his consciousness, and instead while in that process, it was taking him a minute. He's been trying and failing and trying and failing, and it's messing up the the system because there's only so much data storage on the ship, and it takes a lot of data to upload a consciousness. And so he's just trying and failing with that over and over. That has led to issues with the ship. And then Lane woke up. She's the head engineer, and she's trying to kind of fight it off. And so she goes and saves Holston from the people. I don't even know why he was captured in the first place, but she's like, okay, here we got. Actually, I could be wrong with this. It could have been he just got woken up, and then Lane was like, I don't know. Either way, basically, she's like, we gotta stop him. Then the other like key people, key crew staff were like the one was the head of security, and he's just kind of like, he's just the muscle. They don't tell him anything. He's like, you guys don't tell me shit, whatever. And then the other's like a scientist lady, the head like science. And she's like, no, I want to fuck the captain, so I'm with him on this. Plus, it'd be kind of interesting to see how it goes. So, like, well, I'm just going to sit back and watch. And so, got those going on. And then the captain has created, so, like, while he's doing all this, he just let people just start fucking on the ship and, like, just living on there. Because before, it was literally nobody on the ship. Like, there were people on the ship, but they were on cryostasis. But he has created literally a cult around him. So there's people that have lived like generations on this ship that just lived and died, and all they're doing is just trying to get it to the point where he can upload his consciousness. So he's literally their god. And so Lane's like, we gotta stop this. And then for some reason they bring Holston in, and the captain's like, Holston, buddy, you want to see me do it? Remember what you were working on? Check this out. And so he's in there, and with the scientist and the security guy, and he's like, literally the captain's like, he looks like, I imagine it as the moisturize me girl from Doctor Who, like the last human or whatever. Remember the skin thing? That's how I imagined it, but I think he's literally just kind of hooked up to a bunch of machinery, and he's just kind of like just a body just being held up, like he has a robot voice, and like I think it feeds and poops for him and everything. And so he's hooked up to that, and he's like, we're gonna upload it, and then he like starts uploading his consciousness, but then Lane, the head engineer, she comes in and she stops it. I think she literally just shoots him in the head and kills him. He's like, no, in like a robot voice. But still some of his consciousness got uploaded. And then like, yay, we win. Holston, you're going back to bed. And then Holston, okay, fuck, I guess. And so he's back in there. Fast forwards to when he wakes up. He is now he now gets woken up, and they're like, Holston, buddy, guess what? Your cryostasis chamber is failing. We're going to keep you up in this room until we can find you a new one. And so he's like, okay, well, at least I'm not a captive. I'm not a prisoner this time, so it's a plus. And so he notices, though, like, they're all wearing real old suits, and some are names that he recognizes, but he doesn't recognize the person in it. And he's like, oh, God, what's going on now? Turns out, Lane, head engineer, she stayed awake. And she's like, well, someone's got to be a leader now. So she kind of took that captain role. And so she's kind of just been making sure. She's like, we got to get ready for whenever we go back to the spider planet. We got to figure out how to get on there. Because Kern, she's not going to want us back. They're heading back to the spider planet, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. And so they're on their way back, and she's just trying to figure out the best method for it, as Lane does. She's kind of a baller. And so she's real old at this point, and she kind of continued letting the people just live on the ship, continue fucking, I guess, yeah, because actually she was using them, she was training them to be engineers. So she just has like a whole, like instead of a cult that worships her, she's just got a cult of engineers. Might be scarier, honestly. And then she was saying, because like Holston's like, what? And then she's like, yeah. So we're gonna do this, blah blah blah, and it's just kind of explaining it. It like talks about how like their babies and shit work. They got a bunch of frozen embryos because people can't stop fucking. Turns out one of them is Holston Lane's. They didn't really have too much. Like they obviously like were like close, but like it didn't really. It was just kind of all of a sudden like, yeah, by the way, we fucked. So yeah, but so there's that part, and then she's like, all right, your new cryostasis chamber's ready. Back to Betty, bye. And so he goes back to sleep. And then we'll go back to the spiders at this point. I'm way off with like the timeline. It switches back and forth a lot more often. And I'm probably, yeah. But now it's back to the spiders. They're even more advanced. They got their library of understanding. It's following Portia, Bianca, Fabio again. And so it's following, okay, so now it's Portia. So the spiders at this point have like little peer groups, is what they call them. They got basically houses, kingdoms, kind of within the city. Municipals, I guess maybe would be the term. I don't know what a municipal is. Whatever. But yeah, they got little groups within the city. So Portia has her own. She's studying. But then it turns out Fabio, what is this guy doing in this park? Sorry. Fabio is like, you know what? I got something I developed. And Portia's like, what is it? And he's like, I'm not telling you. And then she's like, you're going to tell me. And he's like, okay. I found out how to do even more with the ants. And she's like, what? And he's like, yep. I know how to control the ants. I know how to because they got to reprogram the ants. The ants are still just their slaves. But they're also like kind of using them low key as like machinery. He's like, but I know how to and they have to like go in and reprogram them like manually and stuff. He's like, I know how to do it remotely. And she's like, tell me how. He's like, nope. And then she's like, well, I'll just fuck it out of you. He's like, if you do that, I'll kill myself before I can come. Um, and so he like basically, sorry, I got to pause here. All right, so where was I? Portia was trying to fuck the information out of Fabio. He's like, nope, gonna kill myself if not. And so he's like, guess what? I'll tell you how to do it, but you gotta give us males citizenship, basically. Like, you can't just kill us anymore. Like, we can't just, and then Portia's like, but like, when I'm passionate in the fucking, like, I just, sometimes we just kill you. Like, it's a crime of passion. It's like, that's just kind of what happens. And he's like, nope, you gotta stop. And so she's like, I don't think I can do that. And then so he goes to Bianca. And Bianca's also a scientist in this one. He's like, listen, Bianca, we're going to escape to this other city because there's another city that, it's the one that was completely eviscerated by the plague. And they're, like, that one, they're a little more nice to the guys. Not really, but, like, actually, no, they're not. They're worse. Never mind. So he's like, let's go here, but they're also like, they're a separate city and they're kind of like, they got a little bit of beef. So he's like, Bianca, listen, we're going to go here. If you can protect me on my way here, I'm going to give them, or I'm not going to give them the information, but we're going to use this power. We're going to have them, we're going to take over, because this other city is the Seven Trees. The one that they're at right now is the Great Nest. So it's kind of like New York, that they're at the Great Nest, and then the Seven Trees is like, not quite. LA is probably, I mean, I guess LA is smaller than it. I don't know. It doesn't really, but basically they got beef. It's like East Coast versus West Coast. Yeah, New York versus LA. He's like, we're going to go over here and we're going to be like, hey, we can take over the Great Nest if you agree to my terms. And Bianca's like, how are you going to get out of here? Like, they got spiders everywhere. He's like, hey, watch this. Programs two ants from out of nowhere to just come in and cut out the tree behind him, and he just sneaks out the back. And so they travel on over to the seven trees, which also he needed Bianca to protect him. So, like, Bianca's still, she's like kind of a warrior, but still like a science. She's kind of both. And so she's his like protection to get over there, because there's still like some stray ants that, like, basically you can get banished from like one of the cities, and they spray you with a chemical that causes the ants to want to kill you. So I think they like kind of sprayed that. I don't know. I don't really understand. I don't know. But yeah, so him and Bianca go on over to the Seven Trees. Okay, I'm stopping. Sorry. Um, so they go over there and they're like, hey, like, check this out. And Fabio's like, I can control ants with my mind. You're not going to fuck me for it, though. And so they go over there and they're like, listen, like, really all I want is to, not get murdered for being a dude. Like, can you, like, just kind of, have guys be, at least, like, someone. They're like, listen, like, we're not gonna really, it's gonna be like a misdemeanor if they kill you. Like, we can't promise you'll be equals, but, like, we'll tell them not to, and, like, they'll get shunned for it, and, like, punished a little bit. And he's like, I guess that's good enough. And so he helps them. They create an army of ants, and they go in and they take over the Great Nest, and then they create statues of Fabio, because he's like kind of like who's a woman's suffrage. Damn, I'm misogynist, I guess. I can't think of like a woman's suffrage woman. He's low key like Harriet Tubman, except for not at all. What? That is not even close. No. I disregard that. But yeah, basically they're like, he hooked us up, dude. Now we like only sometimes get killed. And so all the male spiders love them. And then it kind of fast forwards to they at some point. No, yeah. So this is actually I should have caught up more with the spiders at this time. So fast forwards again, and then now they're able they find out how to send that stuff back to the messenger because remember when Bianca was like I need a ponder sword, so they send back they answer the math questions and then it wakes up Kern and Kern is like fuck yeah my monkeys are ready and so she starts sending them like instructions on how to like evolve faster, like kind of technology stuff, and they're like, "What is metal?" And she's like, "Listen, it's this. Like, you need some copper." And so they figure out they can have the ants mine for them, and so they got ants mining and shit. This actually was between the Fabio thing, where he becomes the men's suffrage. Um, So they got ants mining for them, getting like their copper and stuff. They're kind of advancing technologically. And actually, what the first thing they did with the Great Nest Takeover is they took out the ant colonies that were mining for. That's why they had beef. They had different mining because okay, sorry. So they had beef because Great Nest thought that the messenger had a certain message for them. Kern. And then Seven Nest was like, nah, we interpret it this way. Kern wants us to do this. And so they kind of had beef. They didn't quite agree on everything. And then, like, sometimes Kern would only send one colony, something. She'd kind of play into it, I guess, to create competition or something. But, so they got beef going on with that. And so, yeah. But yeah, they're basically developing pretty rapidly, and then does the Papio thing, and then back to them. And so at this point, they have created computers out of the ants. They literally have biometric computers. Is that the word? No. Biological machines. They made computers out of ants. They performed surgery on a grape. And so they got that. They got crazy technology. They're building a spaceship. They've already like it kind of brings it in at this point. Never had it before, which I thought would have been cool. They already like knew how to like create gliders out of their silk because I mean they're spiders. They would just make that. They would make a glider out of their web, and they could like fly like that. And they had like airplanes at this point, but it fast forwards all the way to when they were building a spaceship, and they got a crazy one. They basically made like a zeppelin. They just got a bunch of what is it? I forget the chemical. It's not helium. It's the whatever the Zeppelins was in them. The service. I don't know. Basically, it's got that hydrogen. It doesn't start with a T. But yeah, they filled it up with hydrogen. Maybe. Yeah, I think it's hydrogen. Whatever. Oh, sorry, I'm driving. So they filled it up with hydrogen. We're gonna go with that. I think hydrogen's the one. I don't know. Whatever. And so it's floating them up to like right next to space, and then they have like an actual like spaceship. So they like zeppelin up to space, and then they have like a little capsule that they call the payload, obviously. And at this point, like they have developed like an actual language where like them and Kern are talking to each other. Spoiler alert, it's Imperial C. Um, but so they got this message, they got this language, they're talking, and she's like, you do this, blah, blah, blah. And so what? No, okay, so it's back to Portia and Fabio, and they have also, like, they're talking, and then they surprise Kern. They're like, hey, we're getting close to you. Guess what? We developed pictures. We're going to send you a picture of us on the spaceship. And so they send Kern a picture, and they're like right up close to her, and then she just goes silent, and they're like, "What, Kern, buddy, God?" Because Kern is their god, basically. They don't understand that it's just an AI on a satellite. They think it's quite literally God. And Kern is like, oh, they're spiders, they're not monkeys. And she has to take a minute to like kind of accept that. And so they're just hearing nothing, and they're like, okay, well, we got to continue the mission. So they send up the capsule with it's Portia and Fabio in there. They're teaming up. They're also lovers in this generation, and so they're working together. And they start the launch because they do have like a proper like thruster on the capsule, but it's frozen to the Zeppelin, and they gotta fix that or else they're gonna burn it up. And so Portia's like, well, I gotta go out and fix it. So literally the way that their capsule is made is just, it's web and wood. They're in a spaceship made out of web and wood. And so she just cuts through the web, creates like a little airlock, cuts through it, climbs up on the outside, starts climbing over, and she just gets hit with just heat. Because they got little spacesuits that they're in, and they're good for keeping them warm, because the space is cold. But they didn't realize that you get hot out in space. There's no atmosphere to take out that sun. And so she goes out there to fix it, and she's just literally boiling alive. But she gets undone and then passes out. And so Fabio has to come in and grab her and save her. But they fly up, and they send out a satellite. That was their mission. Yeah, they made a satellite, and it's just literally just a glass ball with ants in it. They have ants in the satellite. The ant computer is their satellite, but they have to keep the ants alive. So it's like a what's the glass thing with like a whole environment inside of it. They basically got one of those, but just up in space. And the ants are just living there happy. It's growing their food for them, providing oxygen and everything. They're just working away. And so they successfully do that. And then Portia and Fabio return down to Earth. Portia is cooked, like literally and figuratively. She's got lots of issues, but she's alive. And Fabio is pretty cooked too. He might have died actually. I think, yeah, he may have died saving her. I don't know, but either way, they come back down and they're heroes. They send off the first spaceship, and like Hernan told them on the way up, she's like, "Listen, I'm gonna tell you now. Back on my planet," and they're like, "Wait, what?" Yeah, there's others like me. And, oh, okay. And she's like, "Yeah, we had a couple people die sending up our space program." So yeah, you're like, I mean, if you die, it's just kind of, it's for progress. And they're like, yeah, you know what, fuck it. Fast forward to Kern, she's like, you know what? They're not monkeys, but they're still my children. Aww. She takes over for the spiders. She loves the spiders. They're her children. And so, fast forward to back to the spaceship up with Holston and Lane. Holston gets woken up again, and they're like, okay, guess what? We're getting there. We're back at Kern's planet. We're going in. We're ready. And so I wake up Holston. Don't really know why. Oh, it's because they're getting satellite signals. And they're like, this doesn't make sense. And they need Holston to decipher it. And so they send him up. And they're like, hey, Holston, can you decipher this? And he's like, this isn't regular Imperial C. This seems like, honestly, an archaic version of Imperial C. Like, I can't. It's like basically like Old English to him. If Imperial C is English, Old English, it's Old English. Where it's like, kind of, it's the same words, but different meanings. And like, kind of same, like, yeah. And he does, it's like hard to understand. He's picking up some words, but he's like really struggling. And so, they're like, I don't know. And then they're like, all right, fuck it. We're getting close enough. We can send out a drone. They send out a drone. Guess what? The planet is covered in a massive spider web. Kern they have an entire spider web around their planet. And they're like, oh. And they're like, hey guys, what do we do? And then somebody that's like he's a pretty big up guy, but he's like one of the people that have lived on the ship for generations. He's like, listen, Lane said to not wake her up until she was on the planet. She wanted to walk on the grass, but I think this is an emergency. And then it cuts back to spiders, and it turns out spiders, they're preparing for war. Not really. They're preparing for defense because Kern has been telling them, she's like, listen, the humans are coming back. They want to kill you all. They're going to murder you. They're going to take over this planet and murder you and destroy you. And so she's like prepared them. She got them to set up that like giant web around the planet. So it's basically just like a giant web around the planet. And they have the space elevators. Yeah. They have just strings of web going up to that web around it that they just climb up. And then they got little spacesuits. And these spacesuits, they literally apparently it says spiders are good in space. They just they got like the suit to keep their body temperature regulated. And then they got little rebreathers kind of thing, just getting their oxygen. And so they're up on there. And then they're preparing, and then it goes back to the spaceship, the Gilgamesh, and the security chief, it's before they woke up Lane. He's like, okay, so we need to figure something out. I think I'm going to send a drone on down. And he sends a drone on down, and they get close and they see Kern's satellite. And then they wake up Lane. And she's like, okay, so let's look at the risk. So either, because this whole time Holston's trying to figure out what's going on with the archaic Imperial Sea. And he's it almost looks like they're asking if he wants peace. That's some of the word he's hearing. Peace is some of the words he's picking up. But then he also hears battle and war. He's like, and then she's like, okay, so here's the situation. We can either, it's kind of a prisoner's dilemma, okay? If we go in offering peace and they're going in looking for war, we're cooked. If we both go in looking for peace, yay. If we both go in looking for war, we can probably win. I mean, they're little just spider things. Because, I mean, they figured it's the spiders with the massive webs around it. And I think they actually saw it in the drone they were looking at. And so she's like, listen, I know, yeah, peace is the best, but we kind of can't risk that. We are literally the last humans alive. We need a planet to live on. And so she's like, blow it up. And so they blow up Kern's satellite. Yeah. And we're like, holy shit, Kern's dead? Nope, Fabio's down in the fucking underground. He's a cave dweller now, and he's created an ant computer to have Kern's AI uploaded to that. Kern is an ant computer now. Kern is an ant computer. What? And so, but they blow it up, and so the spiders are like, well, time for war. And so spiders start shooting. Literally, they have catapults. Their web around the planet is a catapult. They send that straight into the ship, knocks a hole in it, and they're like, oh shit. Luckily it went into a cargo bay. The cargo is the humans that are in cryostasis, but they don't need air at that point. They're in the cryostasis chamber, so they're good. And then they start flinging themselves at the fucking ship. The spiders are flinging themselves at the ship. And okay, so at this point all the key crew's up, so head security guy, head scientist girl, Holston, Lane, they're all working together, and the spiders jump on the ship, and the spiders start taking out their probes outside, their cameras and stuff, so they can't see what's going on. And so all right, security dude, you got to go out with your team. They got these magnet boots, and they got guns, and they're and the flamethrowers and shit. They're decked out. They're okay, you got to go out there and take out the spiders on us. And so he goes out, takes them out. But the spiders are just overwhelming. The spiders are quick. These guys got magnet boots. They're slow walking. They're taking out a couple spiders. There's just too many spiders, and they're flying in. And these spiders are ruthless. These spiders are insane. They're just going in and cutting them up and just dicing them up. And so they're kind of losing it, and then the spiders get into the ship. They're like, uh-oh, nope, that's not good. And so spiders get in, and they just start hearing, like, they're just going to town. Like, remember, there's the people that are living in the ship for generations. Spiders don't know, like, women and children. They can't tell the difference. It's like us looking at spiders. It's hard to tell. And so they're just murdering kids. The spiders are just taking out the kids. They don't care. And then the scientist lady, she's like, okay, listen, I need to get to my lab. And they're like, what? Why? And she's like, I'm developing a gas that's gonna only kill spiders. It's gonna be risky, but we're gonna gas the spiders. And then they're like, that's kind of fucked up, but like at this point, it's necessary. So she's in there working on it. Guess what? Spiders, very good at making chemicals. With all that ant stuff, they've already made gas that kills humans. So they start gassing the humans. They don't know if it kills them or not, but it knocks them out, and that was their goal at least. So they're gassing the humans. They have to cut off the AC, the air ventilation, so that the gas doesn't spread. And so now they're all wearing like astronaut helmets and shit, or masks, to stay alive. And this girl's just working away trying to get the gas trying to make the gas that kills the spiders. And so she's working away, but then spiders are just going to town still. And they're screaming at the security guy. They're like, you gotta get back inside and take out these spiders, dude. And he's like, yeah, let me finish these first. And his guys are dying left and right. So they go out and everyone's dying, and then they break into the scientist's chamber, and she's like, guys, I almost have it, but then all of her like scientists are dying, and she's in like a sealed kind of glass area so that if she makes a gas that kills humans too, they won't all die. And so she's literally watching all of her fellow scientists just get murdered in front of her. Turns out she has arachnophobia, so she's also freaking out that there's giant spiders on top of the giant spiders killing her scientists. And so she freaks the fuck out, and then they break the glass and kill her. Well, we're cooked. Lead security guy, Speed goes dead. They're assuming he's dead. And then just spiders keep getting closer and closer. Closer and closer. It's down to just Holston and Lane. They're like, you know what? At least we go out together. Holston grabs Lane's cane. He's like, I'll smash a couple spiders on our way out, I guess. And they're just holding each other. But then they hear the security guy go back in. And he's like, guys, I'm coming back in. You'll never believe this. Spiders are nice. And they're like, what the hell? And he's acting real weird. And they're like, what do you mean? And then the spiders break in where Holston and Lane are. And they're coming up. And they're just hugging each other. They're like, we're dead. We're fucked. And then the spiders just come up close to them. And then it cuts. Fast forward. Back to Portia. She is just having a stroll. And then she goes up to... Bro. No. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that car. This is the end. She goes up to her pet human. They fucking did the ant enslaving technique on the humans. Though they're like a bit better than the ants. They kind of coexist, but it's like they literally reprogram the human minds to like be like, spiders are amazing. We love them. They literally domesticated the humans. They domesticated the humans. It is crazy. And now they just live in harmony together. And they're working pretty well together. They're like the stuff that humans are better at, they're doing, and the stuff that spiders are better at, they're doing. So like it's the ideal result, but it's also like the spiders reprogrammed their brains to do that. Crazy. And that's the end of Children of Time. It's a series and there's multiple books, but I like the ending of that one. I think I'm gonna leave it there, but we'll see.